Hello, you're watching Encore, our arts and culture roundup here on France 24. Coming up in today's show, reimagining our space, our objects and our virtual experiences. The Design Days festival takes over Paris this week, celebrating the marriage of innovation and aesthetics. Tipping his hat to his late friend and fellow artist, Bertrand Lavier says thank you to Raymond in a new exhibition at Paris's historic Mint. And we take a trip to Latin America. The continent's cultural output is centre stage this week in Paris, with shows taking in photography, painting and more. We're starting off here in the French capital, where the city's shining a light on the best of contemporary design in the Design Days Fair, a series of exhibitions, conferences and workshops. The event brings up-and-coming names from 24 design schools, as well as more established practitioners, to spaces around the city. They're showing off the kind of innovations that could revolutionise the objects we use every day, and those objects look pretty good too. Our reporters went to Paris's Museum of Decorative Arts to check it out.
As she gazes at her reflection in the mirror, Chloe catches a glimpse of something else. This object is multi-layered, and that's exactly what this design lover is looking for.
You can see yourself, but you can also see another world that's just beyond. And in the end, it's the mix of these two worlds and realities that creates something else entirely.
From light to darkness, this is the work of Daan Rosegaarde, a Dutch artist.
The idea is to create a real interaction with the user. This light represents the beating heart of the object. It's alive in a way.
A bit further, an entire hall is dedicated to contemporary Taiwanese art. Made of folder paper, these objects are a material that's at the heart of local traditions.
It's not just a representation of a fish, an animal or an insect. It evokes poetry. It looks like they're animated, an object for a child, in fact.
This year, the D-Days want their exhibits to be accessible to everyone. Organizers want visitors to know that design is everywhere. This year's theme, Revolution, in reference to the Industrial Revolution that saw the birth of design. But for the festival's president, the biggest changes are still ahead.
Le designer, il est à l'écoute non seulement de ce que vivent les citoyens.
The designer observes people's lives, trying to fulfill their needs, but he also imagines the future. We need to help him bring change.
Le changement, il faut l'aider.
Designers don't hold strategic positions today. Too few of them are part of management teams in companies, politics, or cities.
L'État, des villes.
The festival is not limited to the museum's walls. Emily set up a pop-up cafe at this hotel on the banks of the Seine River. She exhibits objects made by women for women.
A woman made these candlesticks, and she chose material usually associated with men. She was inspired by her grandfather's garage. In this work, she uses brass, but gives it a feminine touch.
Perfume, underwear, soap. The Diane Circles opens every afternoon until the end of September.
What do you get when you combine cartoons with the World Wide Web? The result is a sort of digital comic known as webtoons. The phenomenon sweeping South Korea, a country where 67% of the population owns a smartphone. That's 4 times the global average. These online cartoons have spawned a thriving industry, and the companies that distribute them have plans to go global. Nathalie Touré and Julian Alric report from Seoul.
Oh Se-hyung hasn't drawn with an ink pen for a while. He used to create manhwa, the Korean word for printed comics, but he says these days webtoons are a much better creative outlet.
Since you can scroll the page, you focus on writing from the top to the bottom, and the narrative is more streamlined for the author and the reader. You can also change the drawing formats whenever you want. That increases the impact of our stories.
Webtoons are now the main vehicle for aspiring authors to attract a mass following. At least 1 out of 3 South Koreans read 1 webtoon or more per week using a smartphone. So there's plenty of opportunity to become the next celebrated storyteller.
The amazing thing is you can read them anywhere, whenever you want. And I like the design of the drawings better than the printed comics.
Successful webtoon creators become much more famous than their counterparts in the ink and paper world, and they take home a much bigger paycheck as well.
Webtoon publication on internet platforms is paid by episode, with better rates and fixed fees, whether you are a beginner or a confirmed author. Whereas there is no money in the traditional printed comics industry.
South Korean search engine giant Naver has become the country's largest webtoon portal, and the company says webtoons are being received enthusiastically abroad.
We have realized that for a few years, a massive volume of illegal versions of our webtoons had been put online abroad. They are translated by foreign fans. Of course, that's an opportunity we have to seize and also need to ensure better protection of our copyrights.
Naver now offers official English, Chinese, Thai, and Indonesian translations of its webtoons. Make no mistake, webtoons aim to take over the world.
Now back in France, Paris's historic mint, the Palais de la Monnaie, is hosting a new show with work by Bertrand Lavier. The visual artist is paying tribute to his longtime friend and artistic accomplice, Raymond Hains, who passed away 10 years ago. The exhibition features pieces by both Lavier and Hains, positioned facing each other, just like two friends having a conversation. Our team met with Lavier and the exhibition's curator, who seems to be in on the joke.
Merci Raymond. Thank you, Raymond. It's the story of a great friendship between 2 icons of modern art, told through an exhibition. Bertrand Lavier got free rein to share his mischievous take on Raymond Hains, a prolific visual artist and figurehead of New Realism who died in 2005. All in the prestigious 18th century setting of the Monet de Paris.
I couldn't have done this with anyone else. It had to be him and it had to be me. You have to think of this exhibition as a movie called Thank You, Raymond, where Bertrand Lavier is the director and where there are a dozen different scenes.
As many scenes as there are rooms, 13 in total. In each space, Bertrand Lavier's work converses with Hains's, notably his famous torn posters. And the conversation goes from one to the other like it would between old friends, hinting at the times they spent together, the exhibitions they shared.
My father was a lawyer in his village, and Raymond Hains saw this and thought about one of his own works. And he told me, "Did you know your father did torn posters too?"
With this exhibition, the curator behind the project, as well as Bertrand Lavier, wanted to come up with a new format.
It's not a retrospective. It's not in chronological or thematical order. It's a conversation. It's quite atypical. It's refreshing. There's freedom and spontaneity, traits that Raymond Hains and Bertrand Lavier have as well.
Here, the absurd and the poetic are intertwined. Wordplay and witticisms abound, just like in the exhibition's final room.
We're in the room known as the ski fair. Right in front of us is Raymond Hains' famous fence, entirely made of skis. It's actually a reference to a conversation between Bertrand Lavier and Raymond Hains, where they were talking about creating an exhibition room with all the artists whose last name finished in ski. It was a joke. There's Kandinsky, Boltanski, Uklansky, Gassiorowski, and Stravinsky as background music.
A playful end to a playful exhibit that will be at the Monet de Paris until July 17th.
We're staying in the French capital, but taking a trip to Argentina, or its diplomatic mission at least. The Argentinian embassy is hosting an exhibition of Antonio Segui's work. It's part of a Latin American and Caribbean Cultural Week here in Paris, a celebration of continental creativity. We spoke to the director of the gallery at the embassy to learn more about the life and work of one of Argentina's most renowned living artists.
He had different styles. For example, his abstract works were very different to his landscapes. And even what he does now is very different. But one could say that in all his works, he conveys a humanist message that chimes with the period in which he painted.
And you can catch that show until the 9th of June. The Latin American Cultural Center is also hosting a number of initiatives focusing on artists from Panama to Patagonia. We're finishing off with more images from South America, the work of the late Fernel Franco, currently on display at the Fondation Cartier in Paris. The photojournalist documented urban life in Cali, southwest Colombia. Remember, you can get more news on our website. Don't forget to check out Encore on social media too. We're on Twitter, Facebook and Instagram. There's more news coming up on France 24 after this.